Hello, welcome to DementiaDiaries, a caregiver's journey. Tonight, we'll be talking to Meila Harrington. Dementia Diaries is a podcast that came about from the death of my mother, Louise. She passed away in July 2022, and we wanted to share some recommendations, some suggestions that we use to help care for her. Keep in mind that everything that worked for us may not work for you, but we just wanted to share some stories and give you some tips that may help you through your journey. So at this time, I'm going to bring on Meila. Hi, Meila. How are you?
Hey, Janet. How are you? Thank you so much for having me.
You are very welcome. Thank you for joining us. So tell us a little bit about yourself before we get started.
So again, my name's Meila. I live just north of Atlanta in Georgia. Married to my husband, Will. He is my, going on 11 years being married, my sweetheart. We have two beautiful children, my son, Wilton, and my daughter, Lawson. Lawson is 8. Wilton is 4. So we have a great little family. I'm 37. My mom, Vicki, who we'll be talking about, was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. It'll be about 2 years this upcoming August that she got the official diagnosis. I am an only child, and my father passed away 10 years ago from lung cancer. So,
okay. So sorry to hear that. So your mother, you said she has early onset of Alzheimer's.
Yes.
So can you explain a little bit about that?
Yes. So, we started noticing things, I would say probably late 2019. Very, very small. You wouldn't think anything about it. Just noticing that she, would repeat herself very frequently. I think you and I talked earlier, just a lot of emotional up and down. My mom has always been a very happy person. And we just would see these mood changes and just something just did not seem right. Mom at the time and to this day still is not aware that she's had these changes. So the process of getting her to the doctor was a journey itself. My mom was a pediatrician for 37 years. So being a doctor, you often hear that they can be the most difficult patients. And that was very true. So, expressing our concerns to her, which, with a lot of neurological diseases, you have what's called agnosia, where the patient is completely unaware, which can be a blessing and a curse. So once we got to the doctor, that would have been August of 20 or 21, got to the doctor, did the mental test, did the MRI. They noticed that there definitely were some changes to her brain. And so we, of course, went to the neurologist at that point and were able to get the official diagnosis at that time. So we're about 2 years in.
Okay. And how, hearing that diagnosis about your mother at a young age, how did that make you feel? How did you handle that?
It was heartbreaking. It was hard, especially after already, losing my dad, but also was kind of validating because we knew in our, deep down, something wasn't right. I'll be honest, a small part of me was praying that maybe it was a stroke or a brain tumor. Those could possibly be fixed. Right. You hear about Alzheimer's, you in the back of your mind, you're like, oh, well, they've got to be 80 or, late 70s. My mom was 65 when we got the official diagnosis. So I'd be lying if I said there wasn't some anger. My mom was on the road to retiring in the next few years. So more so for her, losing the ability to travel and do all these things that I know she had wanted to do. That was heartbreaking. And then also, you can read about it, you can learn about it, but it's one thing to actually experience it. And I will say with early onset, it tends to progress faster than regular Alzheimer's. So just the changes that we've seen just in the last 2 years have been pretty exponential. So that's been the hardest part, is just coming to cope with it and be okay with it and know that there's really nothing we can do to fix it, but you just learn to kind of live your life with it and to make their life as fulfilled as possible.
So we're going to get into that part of it, but tell me, what was your mother's reaction? Did
Honestly, I
she
don't
say,
think she really, like I said, she was a physician, is a physician, was a physician. And I remember us having a few conversations about it. And, you'll say, Mom, you have Alzheimer's. And she'll say, oh, well, what is that? Or how bad is it? So, kind of going back to that blessing and a curse, I don't think she truly understands it, which is a good thing, but also makes it harder, to explain, why you had to retire or why you can no longer drive your car. Getting that through to her has been very challenging. So it's a good thing and a bad thing.
So let's talk, how did you do that? So let's talk about driving the cars and so forth. How did you get her to?
So, I am a Christian and I don't like lying, but I've had to do my fair share of white lying through this journey. She was diagnosed what I would call during the time of COVID, when COVID was very much a part of our lives. So when we started noticing that she was getting lost driving, that was at the encouragement of her physician, it's time. We actually told her that she lost her keys and that we would have to get her a replacement. But because of COVID, there was a back order on the keys, and just kind of that bought us time to say, oh, well, it's going to be 6 months. It's going to be this amount of time. And it just kind of got to the point that she stopped asking. So that worked for us. I don't know if it would work for everybody, but in our situation, it seemed to be okay. Yeah.
Okay. And how did you all handle the work part? She's not able to work
so
anymore.
the good thing is that retirement was already on her radar. It wasn't, I think she had always said 67 was what she was aiming for. So retirement was there. She actually got lost driving to work one day. She went missing for a few hours. And luckily was able to make it back home. But that was the big head. I mean, she literally was at work on a Monday and this happened on a Wednesday. And then after that, she did not go back. But we basically, I'm like, Mom, you deserve to retire. Your patients want you to retire. And so she, I was like, you get to spend more time with your grandchildren. So that for a while, I think was appeasing for her to know, okay, well, I get to do this, I get to do this. And she was okay with that. There are still times today she'll even say, well, I think it's time for me to go back to work. And we'll just kind of redirect. And I'll say, oh, but you don't want to have to worry about, all of that paperwork and, all the late hours. You don't want to have to deal with that anymore. And that'll appease her and she'll be okay.
Okay. Does it, so I can tell you, like for my mother, she would always, let's go. Don't know where we're going at this particular moment, but sometimes it's let's go. And okay, where are you going? And then she says, I'm going home. And we would say, okay, we're gonna take you home. Let's wait till this show goes off or something like that. And we would redirect as well. And sometimes she would take it, and then sometimes she'll ask again, and then finally it just eats away.
We actually are dealing with that right now. My mom grew up in a very small town in South Georgia, but hasn't lived there 40, 50 plus years, 40 years. But right now she will say, I need to go home. I need to be with my dad. My grandfather's still living. He's in his 80s. But she right now, it's almost like her mind has gone back to when she lived at home. And she'll say, I think I just need to move home and be with my family. And she's not referring to me or my children or my husband. She's referring to her mom and dad and her aunts and uncles who she grew up with. And, I'll say, well, you know what? I'll look and see if I can find something. And, and if she brings it up again, I say, well, I'm still looking. I haven't found anything yet. Cause I've learned it's one thing to say no. That's the one thing that I've read and have heard. You don't just say no, they can't change their mind. So you have to change your mind for them. And, trying to can't, I have a 4-year-old. So it's kind of like having a toddler. You have to redirect and,
And that's key to what you said. The caregiver has to change their mindset, because you can't change the loved one's mindset.
And you can't argue, and you cannot rationalize. Go out the window.
No. So I know, I hear stories and read posts and so forth of some people getting overwhelmed because, they keep doing certain things and they just don't know what to do. But you have to kind of learn how to redirect and so forth. And one of the things that you also honed in on is that when people have dementia or Alzheimer, they revert back to their younger days, earlier days. They can seem to remember those things.
Those core memories, things. Yeah.
A lot better than they can like right now, because that's what, my mom did that as well. She went back in the day. And one of the things that I do for myself is I'm the family historian. And I knew she had a lot of information and I wanted to get it. So I had to wait till she was in those modes of going back to when she was younger, and she would just talk and talk and talk. But the thing about it is you can't interrupt them too much, because they will lose it. Meaning they will lose their focus on that and go to something else.
Right.
So, but that was very key.
My mom and my dad actually were married for 30 years when my dad passed. So last May would have been 40 years. And, Dad was sick for a little bit. And there have been moments that my mom has forgotten that my dad passed. Thankfully, she doesn't seem to get upset when I remind her that he passed. She'll be like, oh, okay. So that's almost harder for me than it is for her, bringing it up. But it's kind of what we have.
Awesome. So tell me, what other challenges have you experienced? Where's your mom now? Is she home?
She is currently living in a assisted living community. We made the decision this past September to move her into a assisted living community. I think I told you she had lived independently in a house by herself for 2 years. Actually, from the diagnosis up until last September, she was living independently in a house right down the street from us, which was great. But we did have an event over the summer where she fell, hit her head. We noticed that she wasn't eating the way she should, wasn't taking her medications. And it just got to be more than I could handle. Being a mom of 2 small kids, you already feel kind of stretched thin. And I just didn't feel like I was giving her the proper attention she needed. If you want to say I was constantly paranoid, we had cameras, to watch her, and to every safeguard we could possibly come up with. And that particular event where she fell was really the red flag that it was time. We needed someone that could be available to her at the drop of a hat, someone that could make sure she was getting her medications, making sure that even though we can't make her eat, someone there to cue her and to offer the meal. So she is at a community right outside our neighborhood. So we can see her very frequently and go visit her often. They do offer memory care when the time will come. So she'll be able to transition to that in the same community.
Okay. So when she was home, alone,
yes.
Right? Okay. So and you had the cameras. So for the cameras, did you use what type of cameras did you use?
I believe we used an Arlo camera. That was the particular brand. I'd have it where it would, anytime there would be movement, it would capture. Of course, when she fell, it did not, because it happened right out of the view of the camera. So, we had, I did not put them in her her bedroom. I wanted to give her that privacy. But primarily, luckily, we have not gotten to the part where she wanders. We're not there yet. Hope we don't know. But so primarily just to make sure she wasn't leaving. That was the main thing. But then, of course, with the fall, safety became a main concern. Thankfully, she didn't cook a lot. So that was also our big concern was, gosh, stove, oven, things like that. But luckily, she did not cook very much, so that was good.
Okay.
But the fall was really the main thing.
Mm-hmm. And how did you get her to stay? How did you get her to stay in the house? I mean, I know you had the cameras, but was she free to go out?
She was
And
up until
you
the
know,
point that we, took the car keys. She would
mm,
come and go. For the most part, though, she was pretty okay with me coming and picking her up and taking her places. So that was pretty good. I just always volunteered to drive, so that was she never really would go anywhere without telling you at that point. Mhm.
and how did you handle the repetitiveness, saying the same thing,
Prayers prayers
over?
for patience. A lot of that, but like you said, I mean, I feel like the biggest word you'll ever hear for anybody dealing with dementia of any kind is redirect. I mean, you learn to find patients that you did not know you had. But I've kind of learned that when she does say the same thing, I either act like it's the first time I've heard it, or I change the subject. And that tends to work. Now there are some things, I will say she will occasionally get fixated on one thing and won't let it go. So the best I
Mm-hmm.
can do is just, try to re-steer the conversation. It doesn't always work. That I would be lying if I said that that's a foolproof method, but just really trying to redirect the conversation or change the subject.
Now, does she ever get like irritated because you're not answering a question,
Uh,
or
not
how
not
so?
really irritated. Just you'll answer it, and then 10 minutes later she'll ask it again, like she's never heard it. So she doesn't get too irritated, but she does get fixated on it, and you can see you'll get anxious sometimes. That's another thing that we deal with is her anxiety can get pretty high. So just constantly trying to reassure her, you know, or answer it again, like I said, like it's the first time I've heard it, and keep her calm.
What what types of medications are she
She
on?
is
Do you know?
currently on donepezil, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna butcher it, Namenda and Aricept are the two, and then
Yeah.
also a antidepressant for the anxiety. We especially when we moved her into this community, any transition, of course, can ramp up those symptoms. So when she moved into the community, we definitely saw an increase in the anxiety. She likes to pick at her hands. That's kind of something that we've noticed. Um, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll be honest, I haven't seen a huge change with the medications. The doctor did kind of warn us that it's not really going to make anything go backwards, not necessarily going to make things go forward, but kind of keep us at a plateau.
Yeah.
So, and we've
Mm-hmm.
all often kind of in my mind, I've debated whether or not we stay on this or do we stop. And I was told though that if we come off, the chance of things progressing faster is a reality. So for right now, we're on those.
Yeah. Now, is she taking the
Yeah,
medicine? I know she's at a
she does.
facility now, so she
She'll
will.
tell me that she doesn't, or that they don't bring her medicine, but I know they do. So yeah, she takes it willingly. She doesn't. She'll ask why. She doesn't understand why she's taking it, but we'll just say, oh well, it helps your
Okay.
brain, makes you feel better. So she
Okay.
she willingly takes them, which is good.
Now, how does she handle a lot of people? Has she ever been to the point where she's been around a lot of people, or a lot of people came to see her at the
She
same
is
time?
at nature an introvert. Even prior to this, she was very introverted. I mean, she loves people, of course. Being a doctor, and you have to love people and children. She loves children. But I will say, in the last year or so, going around large groups, she tends to get a little not overwhelmed in that there's like an episode, but just gets very quiet and kind of reserved and shuts down. Um, we've
Mm-hmm.
been to a few family functions that she did okay. Once she gets there and sees faces that she's familiar with, she's okay. But also, we do try to pay attention to where we go, what we do. She does go to church with us sometimes. So just kind
Mm-hmm.
of being aware of those situations. I know that she has had a little bit of trouble at her new community, acclimating and getting to know people, especially with her being as young as she is. Majority of people that are in assisted living communities are, I would say, 75 plus. So she is significantly younger than majority of residents that you would see. So I think that has been a challenge for her as well.
Okay. Because I know with my mother, so like I said, there are 7 siblings. Seven siblings. She has 7 children. So when we were all there together,
Big group.
yes, the group and the noise, she would get very anxious.
Yeah.
So we started noticing that. So we started to kind of dissipate, kind of let a couple come at a time and just not have so many people around her.
Right.
So once we started doing that, she became, even though she was on medication for anxiety as well, but it just didn't.
They can only do so much. Yeah.
Yeah. So we had that too. Now, what about eating?
Anybody has any magical tips, I would love them. One thing I've noticed is her choice of food has significantly changed. Things that I would have bet $1 million on that she would eat that have been her favorite foods for years are now no longer. Chicken. She does not like chicken. She right now really willingly only likes to eat fruit, sweets. Which the doctor told me too, that usually with this type of dementia that the taste buds change, that the center in your brain that tells you that you're hungry kind of starts to dissipate, and they just don't get that urge to eat. So I honestly have kind of, she also has diabetes, but at this point I've kind of come to the point where if she wants an ice cream, I want her to eat. I don't worry so much about the blood sugar. I just want her to eat something. So I try to keep her stocked with fruits and snacks that she'll eat, but she doesn't even when she comes to our house for meals, she'll pick at it, but not really eat.
Yeah, because that's one thing with my mother as well. Applesauce and the ice cream and lollipops.
Yes,
because it's like she'll eat the food, right? And she'll eat some, but those sweets, she had like candied yams and anything with that sweetness, she would just love it. Yep. So that is true too. And even when she got to the point where she had to have her foods blended, ice cream, pudding, yes, definitely. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And we've asked that the community where she is, that was one of the main concerns we had, of course, was the medication management. And then also, obviously she cannot be force fed. We would not expect that. But giving her that cueing and the guidance to at least, maybe walk to the dining area. The place where she is now has been very good about, if they don't see her down in the dining room, or if she says, no, thank you, I don't want to walk down, they'll bring a meal to her. So knowing that she's at least being offered the opportunity to eat has been comforting, because that was something that, we struggled with.
Yeah. So if you were to give other caregivers some tips about some things that you've learned, I know it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
What are some things you would suggest?
Well, I'll be honest. I got myself into therapy. It got to a point that I started to feel extremely overwhelmed. Life alone without this is hard enough. Having 2 small children, managing my mom's finances, and all the other things. I can be a caregiver all day long from the health standpoint, but from the other aspects are extremely hard. So, had a little bit of a breakdown. Got myself into therapy to really try and help me compartmentalize. Self-care has been a huge thing. It's not something I'm good at. I tend to do for everyone else and then forget about myself. So with the guidance and encouragement of my husband and my therapist, I've really just tried to find those moments to take care of myself, because if your cup is not full, it's not going to overflow to others.
Right.
My faith is hugely important in my life. God has overwhelmed me with the people and resources that have come into my life. It's just but there's no other way to describe it for me other than that's God. So, there's not a lot that people can do for my mom, just with it being a personal thing that I don't know that she would allow others, but the people that have supported me, the people that have supported me and supported my husband and my children, carpool pickups when I may be with my mom and can't get there, or prayer, people constantly praying for me, asking how they can help. That has been, and to don't be afraid to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. If anything, it shows strength, being able to show weakness that you need help. But also I have to let myself not be guilty for, I actually went with my best friend a few weeks ago on a girls' trip to the Dominican Republic. I mean, we literally, treated, and it was such a respite, to just have those 3 days that I didn't have to think about, is mom okay? I knew she was fine. I knew she was taken care of where she is. But then also, another thing I struggle with too is my mom, she's not happy a lot of the time. That's something that we struggle with, is she's not happy. And I know that that's not her, that's the disease. And I know that sometimes she'll say things she doesn't mean. That's the disease. You can say it all day long, but really taking it to heart is the hard part.
Right.
So one thing that I've really had to work on is knowing that her innate needs are being met. She is safe. She is being fed. She is getting her medication. And anything on top of that is fluff. It's great if we get it, but there are things I can't control. I can't control if she decides to be social and go make friends. That's out of my hands. But I do know that those basic needs are being met, and that's all I can ask for. And I have to be okay with that. That's hard. It's hard accepting that one. I'm a fixer. I'm a people pleaser.
Yeah, and I'm glad to hear that you did actually go on a trip and start taking care of yourself, because if you're not good, you can't you can't look after her, and you're the mother of two, and you need to be there for your children and for your husband. So you definitely need to just get that mental break away.
Even if it's 30 minutes sitting in the bathtub with a book, or just taking the moments. The laundry will get done. It may not get done today. I'll go sit on the couch and cuddle with my kids. Those things can come, but time with my kids and the time that I'm with my mom is precious, and so to really just enjoy those times when you get them.
Yeah, and another thing you said that I liked too was, don't be afraid to ask for help.
Right.
Especially if if you're the only child, that's able to do anything. Your friends, if you go to church, your church family, everyone that's around you, you need to reach out and let them know that you need help. It may not be something, it doesn't have to be something big. It can just be something small. Like you said, if you needed the kids, if they were in school, if you needed them to be taken to school, they're driven to school, or a meal brought over, or something of that effect. It's very important for people to reach out to others.
And my mom has several friends who have been wonderful about, going and taking her out for a lunch, or going to visit with her when I can't, or, maybe a day that I can't call her on the phone just because I need a minute, and they'll that day call her and check on her. And then of course they're like, she sounded good, or maybe she didn't sound great today. And I'm just so thankful for those people that do that too.
Yeah, that's really important. I know the funny things about my mom, when my mom was in a nursing home and she was up and walking, and she still had, her capacity wasn't that too bad in a sense, because she'll go around from room to room, and I don't know what she'd be doing. We'll come back and we'll look for her shoes and say, Mom, where are your shoes? They're right there. They are not her shoes. She's taken somebody else's shoes, or somebody else has taken her shoes and left her their shoes. And it just, it just be so funny. You go in, you know, you look for her clothes in the drawer, and she has somebody else's clothes in the drawer.
Okay.
You know, it's like, okay, we got it. We're going to just find your clothes, and we're going to find your glasses. You know, and one of the most funniest things is we're going to find your teeth. We're going to find your teeth.
We had an instance with my mom. She had misplaced her wallet, and I actually on one of the support groups that I'm on Facebook had recommended getting one of those air tags, and so I put that in her wallet. And one day she called me, you know, kind of upset that she had lost it, and of course I ran over to where she was living and found it. She had put it in a drawer in her closet, like under like clothes, you know, and that's not the first time that's happened.
It's just amazing. And I know there are a lot of things that we didn't know about, a lot of things, tools that we could use that I'm learning more about now as I talk to different individuals like you. You know, there's like with the eating, I'm going to have a gentleman join us, and he's going to tell us that if she's not eating, try using a red plate.
Oh, okay.
He said, and I can't think of everything he said as to reasons why, but some reason the brain clicks with the red,
yeah,
and it makes them eat. So that may be something to try as well with your mom. Just it may work, it may not work. So you know, that's all we can do is
you gotta try something. Don't hurt.
yeah. And you know, we have some comments that's coming on too, and just to show how your community is, you have someone, Fred. He said they're close by. Call them if you need them, so they'll help, and they'll keep you in their prayers.
Yeah.
So, and that's what is important. That community, building up community. So, you know, it's important, and it's. I feel good when I'm talking to individuals that have that community, because you know that you're not doing this alone.
Right.
You're not alone, and you have people that are standing in your corner as well, and you have people that love you. We have a Joanne Lewis. She says she loves you. So that is so awesome. But is there anything else that you think would be helpful to another caregiver?
You know,
that
I would
maybe
say, you know, for me, it's really making the most of the time that we have. I mean, I don't know how much time we have, and I also, you know, I don't know how long or if my mom will ever forget me. But for us, like it's really making the most of the time when we get with her. I try, and that was the other thing I forgot to say is part of her, us making the decision to move her into assisted living. And they phrased it beautifully. I get to be her daughter. You know, I don't have to worry about the A through Z list because I know they've got her. So that when I am with her, I'm not, Mom, take your medicine. Mom, don't do this, don't do that. I actually get to be her daughter. And that was part of what I felt I was losing for the time that, you know, that's crucial. So, you know, we take pictures, you know, my kids, my daughter, whether or not she's 8, I don't know how much she understands where we are. My son definitely doesn't, you know, taking those photos, trying to get the kids don't necessarily love going to the assisted living community. Yeah. They want to go out, but you know, whether it's just going for 30 minutes and getting an ice cream with her, or taking them over there to let them run around the courtyard, especially now that the weather's getting nice. That's the part that I would say is just make the most of the time you've got, because I lost my dad at 56, so you really don't know, you know, when you won't have them anymore.
That is definitely true. And
I would say join support groups. That was something I also struggled with, especially with my mom being younger. I did find there are several support groups for dementia, but trying to find one specifically, you know, for people that have young children. I think I heard the term sandwich generation. That's a new term for me. And the fact that, you know, I'm still raising young children, but also caring for my parent in addition to that. Finding other people that are going through it as well. Because I mean, you can talk all day long to family and friends, but until you're really in the thick of it, you don't. It's hard to understand. You know,
Very,
it's really hard.
yes,
So
yes, very
finding
hard.
so I joined a very specific Facebook group for children of parents with early onset Alzheimer's, and even if it's not resource or tips, just kind of hearing that you're not alone and there's other people going through it too, and some of the frustrations that you have and the sadness that you have. You know, I don't want to say misery loves company, but there's power in numbers, and
Yeah,
makes you not feel so alone.
yeah, and build as many memories as you can.
Yep.
You know, I mean, there are going to be certain situations that you're going to have the opportunity to laugh at, and those are the things that you're going to remember. And
Right.
you know, of course, the other part of it, you know, that's part of the disease, that's part of what's going to happen, but just try to build those memories, those good memories, as much as possible.
Yep. Yep. I agree.
So we have people, we have Jeffrey online. He's saying prayers to you and your family. I'm sending my prayers to you and your family. And I want to thank you for taking the time out to talk to us tonight and to share your story and to share your, you know, recommendations and, you know, things that you think are helpful to others. So
Thank
I
you so
really
much for having me.
appreciate
It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope it helps somebody. It's not a journey I would ever choose to be on, but
it.
God
Yeah,
has a plan. So
that's it. That's it. He has
yeah.
a plan. So thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you so much, Janet.
Everyone, thank you for joining Dementia Diaries. That is the end of our show for tonight. If you are interested in being a guest on our show, please reach out to us at DementiaDiariesPodcast@gmail.com. We have our shows every second and fourth Thursday of the month. If you have any questions or any recommendations, please let us know. Take care and have a good night. We appreciate you.